The world has been watching Meghan Markle and Prince Harry for years, enthralled, disgusted, inspired, and sometimes bewildered by the very public life they've chosen. But lately, the veil of mystique is starting to crumble, revealing a pattern that has been quietly building for years, a sequence of moments where the perfectly curated image collides headfirst with reality in the most chaotic ways possible. What we're seeing now is less about royal duty or Hollywood dreams and more about desperation, control, and the relentless pursuit of relevance at any cost. The latest chapter in this saga? A scandal so ridiculous and yet so emblematic that it feels almost scripted. A dress. A simple green dress, a borrowed gown from a photo shoot, worth maybe a fraction of the fortune that the couple has amassed, yet it spiraled into a drama so intense it consumed headlines, social media threads, and even the whispers of royal insiders. Imagine living in a Montecito mansion worth tens of millions, having access to the finest designers, yet being accused of clinging to a sample dress as if it were a priceless artifact. And then there's the explanation that followed, a convoluted, almost comical defense claiming she kept it to prevent it from being resold, as if stylists and designers are plotting secret auctions of her wardrobe behind her back. It sounds absurd. It is absurd, yet it also tells you everything you need to know about how Meghan approaches crises. Complicate everything, spin endlessly, involve as many people as possible, and never give the straightforward answer that could calm the storm. The pattern is unmistakable. Every minor incident, be it a borrowed dress, a turkey in a holiday special, or a Netflix trailer, is blown into a spectacle. And when the press or the public questions it, Harry is inevitably dragged in, a loyal buffer standing between the world and the whirlwind Meghan has created. But Harry's energy now seems spent. The charm and confidence that once defined him are replaced by a kind of anxious endurance, a man constantly trying to support, shield, and clean up behind someone who thrives on drama. Meanwhile, Fergie's casual mention of Meghan's yacht summer sent the internet into a frenzy. It was almost surgical in its precision. A sly smile, a tiny head tilt, a hint at a past life Meghan prefers erased from the public record. Suddenly, old photos resurfaced, TikTok threads exploded, and the so-called polished Duchess was caught scrambling, pacing through her mansion, phone in hand, instructing her PR team to contain the narrative. She insisted it was misogyny, that the palace should intervene, that Fergie had no right, yet everything she said and did exposed the fragility of the carefully constructed persona she sells. It was a masterclass in contrast. Fergie, seasoned and unbothered, letting hints slip with effortless charm. Meghan, frantic and defensive, trying to contain a story she cannot control. As the world watches, it's impossible not to notice the stark difference between Meghan's performance-driven existence and Catherine's grounded, elegant presence. William and Catherine manage the public gaze with a kind of natural ease that comes from decades of experience and discipline. William jokes with volunteers, Catherine engages with calm grace, and together they project stability, warmth, and partnership without the need for constant explanation. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry's every move is scrutinized, every project dissected, and every statement becomes another headline about entitlement, vanity, or manipulation. The juxtaposition is brutal. One royal family embracing tradition and poise, the other chasing a Hollywood dream while dragging titles, PR crises, and expensive mistakes behind them like cumbersome baggage. Netflix, once eager to capitalize on the couple's royal allure, has finally reached its limit. The streaming giant quietly pulled the plug on their multi-million-dollar deal, leaving Meghan scrambling to reinvent her narrative. That Christmas special, meant to cement her Hollywood reinvention, ended up as a staged, awkward, and painfully curated vanity project. Viewers could see through the polished facade, the forced smiles, the lack of family presence, the awkward public displays of affection with Harry that felt less like intimacy and more like an obligation to the camera. Even Harry's discomfort was palpable, a man caught between loyalty and exhaustion, trying to maintain composure while his spouse orchestrates yet another production around him. Netflix's decision was telling. The deal wasn't canceled loudly or dramatically, but rather quietly downgraded, signaling the end of an era that never fully began. And for Meghan, it's a stark reminder that titles, brand leverage, and media spins only stretch so far when the content itself fails to resonate. Even the pivot to family and parenting content feels strategic rather than genuine. From carefully staged, cozy moments to aestheticized motherhood, everything is packaged to sell a narrative rather than to reflect lived experience. Reports of Archie being left behind for weeks as an infant, juxtaposed with photos of Meghan presenting herself as a hands-on, nurturing mother, reveal a disconnect between brand and reality. It's a performance, a marketing campaign masquerading as a lifestyle choice. Meanwhile, Harry's attempts to support these ventures, giving speeches, attending events, or appearing in projects, highlight a man increasingly trapped in a cycle of appearances, chasing validation and relevance that feels increasingly out of reach. The contrast with Catherine's grounded public work, speeches on workforce development, genuine engagement with families, and tangible initiatives is jarring. Catherine builds influence with impact. Meghan builds visibility with spectacle. Financial pressures add yet another layer of tension. The couple left the royal family with a substantial cushion, yet lifestyle choices, security, travel, PR teams, and real estate had depleted resources faster than anticipated. Their pivot to media, speaking engagements, and projects feels less like passion and more like necessity, yet each step exposes gaps in expertise, credibility, and authenticity. Harry's speeches about housing policy or mental health, while well-intentioned, often read as recycled talking points lacking depth, a stark contrast to the authority and poise William brings to similar roles. Every misstep reinforces the narrative of a couple struggling to reconcile ambition with execution, brand with substance, and past privilege with present expectation. Amid all this, public perception has shifted. The repeated pattern of drama, borrowed dresses, holiday specials, yacht summers, staged motherhood, failing deals, paints a picture that is hard to ignore. Each incident alone could be overlooked, but together they form a relentless narrative of performance, chaos, and miscalculation. The difference in reception between Meghan and Catherine is almost anthropological. Where one inspires trust, calm, and admiration, the other triggers suspicion, critique, and a mixture of fascination and exasperation. The public sees it. Staged affection, calculated poses, selective transparency, and a relentless drive to control every story, every image, every perception. And yet, the contrast is painfully clear. Catherine's influence grows quietly but steadily. Meghan's prominence relies on spectacle, media amplification, and relentless self-promotion. The story doesn't end with one scandal, one special, or one PR misstep. It continues, and each chapter seems to escalate the stakes. From borrowed dresses to yacht summers, from Netflix failures to parenting pivots, the pattern is persistent. Every crisis reveals the same tendencies: overcomplication, legal threats, selective transparency, strategic deflection, and relentless attempts to control perception. Meanwhile, Harry's exhaustion, the fading relevance in Hollywood, and the inevitable comparisons to William and Catherine compound the pressure. The public witnesses it all, fascinated and incredulous, watching as a couple navigates the collision of ambition, privilege, and media scrutiny in real time. And so, we're left with a tableau of contrasts. One woman who has mastered the art of calm, credibility, and subtle influence, and another who seems perpetually caught between reinvention, crisis management, and the relentless pursuit of visibility. One royal family that works with patience, discipline, and purpose. Another that stumbles through Hollywood, media deals, and public perception, constantly chasing relevance while appearing to teeter on the edge of disaster. The intrigue, the spectacle, and the drama continue, unfolding with every public appearance, interview, and release. For anyone paying attention, it is clear, this saga is far from over, and the next chapter promises more tension, more spectacle, and more dramatic reveals that will leave audiences both captivated and exasperated, eagerly waiting for what happens next. And then came the social media storm, the kind that can turn a minor lapse into a full-blown international spectacle overnight. One careless post, One awkward still from a Christmas special, one vague comment from a distant royal family member, and suddenly every platform was ablaze. TikTok creators dissected Meghan's every move frame by frame. Twitter threads amassed thousands of replies speculating about intentions, and Instagram comment sections became a battlefield of supporters and critics. The narrative snowballed, not because of any one dramatic event alone, but because the pattern was unmistakable. Every misstep amplified the next, creating a feedback loop of public fascination and ridicule. Even seasoned journalists admitted they hadn't seen anything like it. A royal who was once untouchable in public perception now reduced to trending hashtags over the simplest actions. A borrowed gown, a staged kiss, a carefully curated holiday scene. These were the building blocks of a narrative that no amount of PR spin could fully control. Inside the Montecito mansion, the atmosphere was reportedly tense. Insiders described Meghan pacing endlessly, phone in hand, calling aides, PR strategists, and personal assistants into emergency meetings, trying to suppress leaks before they could trend, trying to rewrite search results and social media posts in real time. Each text message felt like a detonator. Every news alert was a fresh explosion of panic. Harry, on the other hand, appeared increasingly detached, the toll of endless defense mechanisms written clearly on his face. He wanted to protect, to shield, to manage the optics, yet he was powerless against the machinery that Meghan herself had set in motion. Sources reported his frustration, a mixture of exhaustion and helplessness, as he attempted to support his wife, while simultaneously enduring the public comparisons to William and Catherine that now felt inescapable. The very energy that once defined him, confidence, charisma, purpose, was being worn down by constant media cycles, failed Hollywood ventures, and the inescapable reality that titles and royal legacy alone could not sustain a modern-day media empire. Meanwhile, the comparisons to Catherine grew sharper and more public. Every event Meghan attended, every project she launched, every photo she curated, was measured against Catherine's steady presence, her calm authority, her capacity to be both relatable and aspirational without ever performing for the camera. William and Catherine's appearances radiated effortless influence. He joked, she smiled. Together they created warmth without ever forcing it. Meghan's every move, in contrast, now seemed calculated, staged, and overproduced, a constant effort to manufacture charm rather than exude it naturally. Public opinion reflected this contrast immediately. Fans, followers, and critics alike noticed how the sheen of performance overrode the substance of engagement. A holiday special meant to convey coziness and family warmth instead revealed awkward interactions, hollowly staged moments, and the unsettling energy of someone trying desperately to manufacture an image she could never fully inhabit. The Netflix fallout only added fuel to the fire. What was once a multi-million-dollar mega deal had been quietly downgraded to a series of smaller, less visible projects, a first-look deal that offered minimal exposure, a polite nod from a streaming giant that had grown tired of the theatrics and unpredictability. Insiders described the decision as strategic. Netflix had gotten the content they wanted, the brief spectacle of royal glam meets Hollywood, and they were ready to quietly step back without causing a scene. Yet, for Meghan, the reduction was a personal humiliation, a reminder that even her polished campaigns could fail to convince the world of her relevance. The trailer for her Christmas special, meant to cement her Hollywood credibility, instead became a visual metaphor for her struggles. Awkward staging, forced gestures, Harry's discomfort, and the uncomfortable intimacy that viewers immediately recognized as performative. The world saw what Hollywood insiders already knew. Branding and titles could only carry someone so far. Content, execution, and authenticity mattered far more than PR spin or royal allure. Then came the parenting pivot, a move meant to rehabilitate her image and recapture public goodwill. Cozy imagery, warm lighting, and carefully placed children became the cornerstone of Meghan's latest strategy. She was portraying herself as a hands-on, nurturing mother, a loving guide through the trials of modern parenthood. But cracks in the narrative were impossible to hide. Reports of Archie being left behind for weeks during infancy, combined with stories of Liliette participating in highly choreographed media moments, painted a starkly different reality. Insiders described a woman who had mastered the art of image management but struggled with genuine, day-to-day engagement, relying instead on branding and staged moments to communicate affection and involvement. Even public statements felt rehearsed, each anecdote and example carefully tailored to convey warmth without revealing the logistical truths of her daily life. It was a branding strategy dressed up as genuine parenting, a spectacle that the audience could detect immediately, no matter how polished the imagery or sweet the soundtracks. The financial pressures added yet another layer of tension. Despite walking away from the royal family with considerable wealth, the couple's lifestyle, luxury homes, security, international travel, PR teams, and high-end personal staff had reportedly depleted resources faster than anticipated. Hollywood deals that seemed lucrative were turning out to be short-lived, poorly executed, or creatively unfulfilling. Harry's speaking engagements, once anticipated with high hopes, often exposed a gap between intent and expertise, as he addressed complex topics like housing policy or mental health with prepared lines, recycled narratives, and awkward delivery. Insiders reported that each appearance felt increasingly transactional, a man attempting to maintain dignity while chasing opportunities that his name alone could no longer fully leverage. The contrast with William's trajectory, steady engagement, meaningful initiatives, and authentic leadership, was striking and unrelenting, reinforcing the perception that Harry and Meghan were struggling to navigate their new life outside the palace with consistency, competence, or cohesion. Amid all this chaos, the public narrative became clear. Meghan's influence relies on spectacle, branding, and curated appearances, while Catherine's influence derives from authenticity, calm, and tangible impact. Every scandal, every awkward performance, every staged media moment contributes to a growing narrative of overreach and desperation. The world watches not just the couple but the machinery behind them, the PR teams, the legal advisors, the social media strategists, all working tirelessly to preserve an image that increasingly feels unsustainable. And with every new attempt to control the story, whether through lifestyle branding, parenting campaigns, or media deals, the more glaring the cracks become. Audiences are noticing, analysts are dissecting, and the pattern is undeniable. Performance over substance, spectacle over authenticity, desperation over composure. Even the smallest moments reveal this dynamic. A smile too stiff, a gesture too calculated, a throwaway comment caught on camera. Each is amplified, analyzed, and interpreted. The world has grown sophisticated enough to see through the veneer, and the narrative now extends beyond gossip. It's a study in control, privilege, and the human desire to be both adored and envied. Meanwhile, Harry, once the symbol of charm, rebellion, and youthful purpose, appears increasingly weighed down, a man trying to navigate a partnership defined by public scrutiny, internal tension, and relentless comparison to his brother and sister-in-law. The disparity between the effortless influence of William and Catherine and the increasingly performative existence of Harry and Meghan is not just striking, it is central to understanding why every new misstep becomes a media sensation. The story is far from over. Every new public appearance, every holiday special, every social media post contributes another layer to a narrative that has been decades in the making. Meghan's relentless pursuit of visibility, control, and influence collides with reality, public expectation, and the innate stability of the royal institution, producing a drama that is endlessly compelling. And yet, despite all the setbacks, missteps, and failures, there remains an undeniable fascination. The world watches because the stakes are high, the drama is palpable, and the contrast is breathtaking. One family navigating duty, authenticity, and influence with effortless grace, another chasing relevance, constructing spectacle, and scrambling to maintain control, all under the relentless gaze of the global public. Each chapter unfolds like a cautionary tale, a live case study in ambition, perception, and the unavoidable consequences of living a life half in reality, half in performance. And so, the saga continues. With every borrowed dress, every staged kiss, every awkward holiday special, and every carefully curated parenting moment, the pattern emerges clearer, louder, and more unflinching. Audiences are watching, insiders are whispering, and social media never sleeps. The drama is relentless, the stakes are real, and the contrast between perception and reality, spectacle and substance, ambition and execution grows ever more pronounced. For Meghan and Harry, the challenge is not just sustaining relevance, but navigating a life where every choice, every gesture, and every word becomes fodder for global scrutiny. And as history has shown, the world will not forget, will not overlook, and will always demand the next chapter, the next revelation, the next spectacle in a saga that continues to fascinate, frustrate, and captivate. The Montecito Mansion, with its sprawling terraces and manicured gardens, may have looked like the epitome of luxury and calm, but inside, the air was thick with tension, a tension that seemed to have been growing since the moment Meghan's Hollywood dreams first collided with reality. Every door opened, every soft click of a designer heel against polished floors, every faint hum of air conditioning felt like a countdown to the next PR disaster. Insiders described it as a house simultaneously drenched in opulence and suffocated by anxiety. Each member of the staff, each aide, each personal assistant knew the rules. Nothing leaves the mansion without approval. Every message is scrutinized. Every social media notification is a potential crisis. And yet, the chaos continues to find a way in. It creeps through emails, tweets, Instagram mentions, online gossip, and it lands squarely on Meghan's carefully maintained persona. She, of course, tried to maintain her poise, her curated Instagram smiles, her warm, approachable persona that suggested an effortless blend of Hollywood glamour and down-to-earth relatability, but those closest to her said it was a fragile facade, cracking under the weight of constant scrutiny and the sheer pressure of expectation. The Netflix fallout was particularly telling. For months, insiders had been whispering about the soft cancel approach, the platform quietly letting go of the high-profile contract, wrapping the Christmas special as the final bow on a venture that never truly succeeded. For the casual observer, it might have looked like holiday cheer, festive warmth, or seasonal charm, but the reality was starkly different. Every frame, every cut, every scene that had been polished, edited, and res-hot multiple times now stood as a subtle indictment of unfulfilled potential. The awkward kisses, the forced interactions with Harry, the overproduced aesthetic moments, all of them were not mistakes. They were symptoms of a larger truth. The brand had run its course, the audience had grown weary, and Netflix had finally decided that the spectacle no longer justified the investment. The final trailer, meant to cement Meghan's Hollywood credibility, instead became a visual metaphor for what insiders described as a slow-motion collapse, a woman desperate to maintain control, a man increasingly detached, and a platform quietly signaling its exit. Social media erupted as expected. TikTok creators posted split-screen comparisons of her Christmas special versus previous royal engagements, highlighting the forced smiles, the staged hugs, the over-curated visuals. Twitter threads spiraled into analytical breakdowns of body language, tone, and authenticity, while Instagram comment sections became arenas for debate, mockery, and speculation. What was once a private family moment transformed into a public spectacle, every frame scrutinized, every nuance debated. Even minor details, a poorly placed ornament, a stiff hug, a glance too long at a camera, became indicators of larger narratives. Tension, inauthenticity, desperation. The global audience, now trained to recognize performative gestures versus genuine emotion, noticed what the traditional media still struggled to articulate: that Meghan's life, as curated as it appeared online, was increasingly governed by strategy, branding, and optics, leaving little room for spontaneity or authenticity. Meanwhile, Harry's position became increasingly precarious. Once a symbol of youthful rebellion, of charisma and purpose, he now appeared trapped in the machinery of Meghan's vision. Each public appearance, each speaking engagement, Each media project was either an extension of her branding strategy or a desperate attempt to maintain relevance in a world that had grown skeptical. Sources described him as checked out, a man who had traded his personal identity and mission for the role of steadfast support, navigating opportunities that often exposed him as inexperienced, underprepared, or simply out of place. His keynote speeches on topics like housing policy or mental health were described as awkward, delivered with rehearsed lines, recycled anecdotes, and a subtle tension that audiences could immediately sense. He no longer commanded the stage effortlessly. He maneuvered it cautiously, aware of his limitations, weighed down by the pressure of maintaining appearances while watching his wife take center stage. And then there was the unrelenting comparison to William and Catherine, a contrast that seemed to exacerbate every misstep. William, calm, measured, grounded, commanding respect through competence rather than spectacle. Catherine, radiant, poised, relatable without performing, able to project warmth, stability, and influence effortlessly. Every public moment from them amplified the fragility of Harry and Meghan's performances. Social media users, commentators, and insiders repeatedly pointed out how natural William and Catherine appeared, even in mundane or casual settings, versus the meticulous staging and self-conscious energy that defined Harry and Meghan's media projects. This disparity became a lens through which the public interpreted every move. While the Cambridge couple embodied authenticity, poise, and sustained influence, Sussex appearances increasingly read as attempts to manufacture admiration, relevance, and sympathy. Meghan's attempts at cultivating a motherhood empire only magnified the tension. Cozy aesthetics, curated moments with Archie and Liliette, and the constant projection of maternal warmth were intended to establish her as an aspirational figure for modern parenthood. Yet, the reality, as reported by insiders, was often at odds with the polished narrative. Long absences from the children, reliance on staff, and carefully choreographed interactions painted a picture of motherhood as performance rather than lived experience. Statements she made casually, such as, "Whoever's with the kids can play her recorded stories," exposed a transactional aspect to her parenting that contrasted sharply with the cozy, nurturing persona she projected. Every carefully staged photo, every scripted video segment, and every social media post became a double-edged sword, attempting to build credibility while simultaneously revealing cracks in authenticity. Financial pressures compounded the public scrutiny. Despite the initial windfall from leaving the royal family, lavish spending on security, travel, estates, staff, and personal branding efforts reportedly depleted the couple's resources faster than anticipated. As lucrative Hollywood deals fizzled or were quietly downgraded, the couple increasingly relied on high-profile speaking engagements, small-scale appearances, and media campaigns, which often failed to deliver substantive impact. Observers noted the stark contrast between William and Catherine's sustained influence and strategic public presence versus Harry and Meghan's scramble to monetize visibility and maintain relevance. Each miscalculation, awkward interaction, or misaligned project intensified scrutiny, reinforcing the perception of desperation, overreach, and declining influence. The pattern of performative gestures, staged appearances, and managed narratives was reinforced with every media cycle. A borrowed gown, a holiday special, a yacht summer anecdote, or a seemingly minor public comment became fodder for global commentary. The constant media attention, social media amplification, and internal brand management created a feedback loop that intensified pressure, increased public fascination, and heightened scrutiny. Insiders described the psychological toll: exhaustion, heightened sensitivity to criticism, and increasing reliance on public appearances and media strategies to sustain identity, relevance, and influence. At the center of this whirlwind, the contrast between perception and reality became a defining feature. Meghan and Harry projected influence, relevance, and charm, yet the mechanisms supporting their image, media consultants, PR teams, social media strategists, and lifestyle branding, revealed a fragility beneath the surface. Audiences and insiders alike could sense the tension, the strain, and the calculated nature of every move, resulting in an evolving narrative: spectacle over substance, performance over authenticity, desperation over calm authority. Every decision, from media campaigns to personal appearances, contributed to a story of ambition, excess, and the relentless pursuit of control in a world that increasingly demands authenticity. As the saga unfolds, every new public appearance, media campaign, or social media post becomes both a test and a spectacle. The world watches not only for entertainment but for insight, analysis, and the unfolding drama of privilege colliding with public perception. Each chapter exposes contradictions, reveals strategic maneuvers, and highlights the tension between crafted image and lived reality. The narrative continues to captivate because it is simultaneously aspirational, cautionary, and revealing, offering lessons in power, influence, and the relentless scrutiny that accompanies public life. In this ongoing story, the stakes remain high, the audience is relentless, and the consequences of each move, intentional or otherwise, become amplified beyond measure.